Hi, welcome back to my channel. My name's Carter. I love talking about movies, horror movies, comic books, and superheroes. And today I just got out of seeing Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes, and I really wanted to talk about it. So a little background, I love the, reboot, remake trilogy of the Planet of the Apes from about 10 years ago. In fact, Dawn of the Planet of the Apes, in my opinion, is one of the best blockbusters of the 21st century. I have never seen any of the old Planet of the Apes. I saw the old Tim Burton Planet of the Apes, and I saw the remake trilogy, which was Rise, Dawn, and War. I moved my camera a little bit, hopefully this is more in focus. And so I was a little nervous going into Kingdom simply because the last three were so good. I didn't know if it would live up to the hype or if it would kind of tarnish the brand a little bit. And I have a lot of thoughts on it, a lot of positive, some mixed, and some negative, so be sure to stick around. Also, let me know what you thought about Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes down in the comments section below. Do you love the trilogy that was before this one? Have you seen any of the old ones? I would love to hear more. I'd love to hear your opinion about it, so please comment it down below. Also, I did start a podcast called Big Screen Banter Podcast with my friends Aiden and Kyle. I will put the link in the description below to follow us on TikTok, Instagram, YouTube, you know it. And in Kingdom, it takes a completely different approach to where it's set generations after war, and so Caesar has been long gone, and his teachings have been passed down to apes. And spoilers for War, I guess, and spoilers for how the movie starts out. I'm not going to really give any specifics, but the humans are pretty much primates now. They've devolved to where they can't speak, they have a hard time communicating, they just grunt and stuff, and the primates, or the apes, are very intelligent, very smart. They have separate clans that they live in, and have a very sophisticated place to live. Sorry, I totally spaced. This film was directed by Wes Ball and is written by Josh Friedman. Stars Owen Teague, Kevin Durand, and Freya Allan. The cinematography is done by a name I might butcher, I apologize, Gayola Pados. He's worked with Wes Ball in the past, and I'm just going to get right into the positives here. This film visually is stunning. Any doubt that was had because Wes Ball is taking over from Matt Reeves that the visuals might drop in quality? No, not at all. The visuals are still incredible. Just the look and the aesthetic of all the overgrown cities, very post-apocalyptic, and reminded me a lot of The Last of Us. And I love that look, that aesthetic, and that feel of post-apocalyptic here. You know, stuff is destroyed and it's filled in with foliage, and it just looks beautiful. It adds so much color to this world in a way that I thought was just fantastic. And I thought that the performances all around were exceptional, especially Freya Allan as Nova, or May, she has two names in the film, was phenomenal. Owen Teague as Noah was great as well. He's just so easy to relate to. You can relate to so much of his character. He starts out, trying to accomplish one goal, and then his character arc is completely flipped. He's forced to mature over the course of the film, and, he's trusting. He's very trying to be compassionate. He's following, what he believes is Caesar's teachings as he comes to learn, and I thought that was very interesting. I think my favorite part about this film, besides, the stunning visuals, the special effects are great. Visually, this movie's great. The cinematography, fantastic. Anyways, my favorite part about this film that wasn't anything visually was just the aspect of Caesar's legacy, and legacy in general, of how Caesar became this revered figure for the apes, this man of legend, this ape, of legend, this ape of, whose teachings were taught generation to generation, and in some ways they become twisted to where apes together strong can have a whole different meaning. Or things like ape not kill ape might not even exist. However, there are still some followers of Caesar that you get to see in this movie. For example, Rocca, who I thought was the best character in the film, far and away, played wonderfully by Peter Macon, or Peter Macon, I'm sorry, I don't know how to pronounce that. He performed so well as Rocca. Rocca is just so interesting and such a unique character. He's like a missionary or an apostle of Caesar, to where he studies Caesar, he studies the old world and wants to, convert or show more people the true meaning of Caesar and what he really represented. And to me, that was just so interesting, seeing two sides of this coin that is Caesar's legacy. You have certain apes, like the antagonists of the film, that twist Caesar's teachings. They twist his words in a way where it's completely misconstrued and doesn't have anything to do with how Caesar really was as a person. And I thought just that very simple metaphor or allegory, however you want to call it, connection to real world of religious figures, whether you are religious or not, to how certain people can use religion or use a figure of religion or an important figure to justify an action. And I'm not trying to single any religion out or anything like that, but it's just something you see happen nowadays. It could be a political figure, a religious figure, someone important. I mean, really anything. It could be the dude that tried to kill someone for Jodie Foster. Who knows? It's just so interesting to see the two sides of that coin interact. And I will get into some of that in the mix, but I really loved like the beginning. I really love the first half of the film that focuses on that so much and just focuses on who Caesar was and exploring his legacy through these different characters. I mean, you don't have anyone performing on the level of Andy Serkis in Dawn and War and Rise, but I mean, who could? He just really owned that role, and Caesar is such a phenomenal character. Koba as well, played by Toby Kebbell in Dawn. You just get such unique characters in the apes in those movies where it's almost untouchable, and you get very different ape characters here, which I liked. I liked that they're not trying to take the route of, here's the Caesar type character. I mean, yeah, Noah is a character that, you know, is the protagonist, but he's not the Caesar carbon copy. And you have Proximus Caesar, who is the villain of sorts in this film, the antagonist, and he's not a Koba copy either. Very different protagonist and antagonist here, and I really enjoyed that, how they didn't try and retread a lot of the stuff. Some of the themes are still the same, but for the most part, it's different enough. I also thought the action sequences were spectacular. I really loved and was thrilled by some of the sequences. There's not a ton of action in this film, so just heads up. It's a lot like maybe Rise or parts of War, to where it's not very action heavy. There's a few fights here and there, but it's very light on action, and instead this blockbuster is focused more on the visual flair, and it's focused more on kind of exploring this world of the apes. And I really enjoy that. I like that there's blockbusters out there that are willing to take their time, in this world and just explore the realm, the planet of the apes. I thought that was very interesting and very engaging. Now, for all the praise that I gave that movie, I do feel like this wasn't on the level of Dawn and War. And yeah, I know my expectations were extremely high. I tried to temper them as best I could. But when you have films like Dawn and War that deal with such interesting and deep and dark themes and subject matter and handle it in a way that's thrilling and engaging, and you get incredible characters like I mentioned before, and then you move to Kingdom, you do have to kind of understand that this is a different film. It is still a blockbuster, yeah, but it's not quite, it sits in an interesting kind of, it sits in an interesting gray area or limbo, to where it's not as well explored as Dawn and War, but it's not as like dumbed down as, you know, usual summer blockbuster fare is. It can be slow paced, it can be, you know, engaging and interesting. However, I do think that there are a lot of issues with the film, so let's get right into the mixed. And the biggest mixed aspect for me were the characters. Some of these characters here are so interesting, so engaging, like I said, and then you have some that are just very underdeveloped and undercooked. It felt like they weren't really in there for a reason. There are certain, I'm really trying not to spoil here, I really don't want to give anything away, but there are certain characters that get introduced or have a part to play in the second half of the film that really just don't do much. They're just there to kind of give some exposition and then get written out of the film, which to me was extremely disappointing. I don't think that worked as well, and like I mentioned, the themes here aren't as strong as previous Apes films, and so it can feel a lot like it's missing something. I also think that as good as Kevin Durand is as an actor, and as good as he played Proximus Caesar, something was missing, and I'll get into that more in the negative, but as far as like, he tried his best, but the character just wasn't all there. And in a surprising issue I have with the film, some of like the speed, the urgency, the movement of the plot in the second half really died down when a certain event happens, they get to a certain location or anything. Stuff just kind of slows down, and I felt all the urgency and tension just be sucked away from the film in a way that left me kind of disappointed. I was really bummed because the first half of the film, like I mentioned, I really enjoyed. I was super, super invested. I loved the first half of the film, and then certain things begin to happen, and it just kind of lost me, to where I think that maybe they could have tightened up some sequences in editing or in the script, and just kind of tightened up some character arcs, to where the script just kind of felt like very strong first half, very weak second half. And getting into my negatives, like I mentioned, the third act of this film to me just kind of felt both rushed and underdeveloped in a way to where, very hard to explain if you haven't seen the film, but there's certain characters, there's two in particular, one in the first half and one in the second half, that are very interesting and very engaging, both in their relationship to Noah and to Nova, and in their view of the world. However, the film doesn't really do anything with that. I wanted more of the ensemble cast to shine. As interesting as Noah is, we get a lot to learn about him, and as long as the movie is, we learn surprisingly little about a few of these supporting cast and characters. I really loved certain characters, but we just don't get enough time to know about them, and they just are written out. And that really bothered me in a way where I ended up almost disappointed with certain aspects. I feel like the characters here are just such a mixed bag to where I left the film like, oh man, I wish I had more of that and more of this. And I know I'm being extra hard on this movie. That's just because the scale for these movies is just set so high. The bar for these movies is just incredibly, incredibly high. And by no means do I think this is a bad movie. By no means do I think this was a disappointment. And I'm not a massive fan of the Apes franchise. I'm just a casual fan. I really enjoy the trilogy that came before this one. And so I'm just wanting to give my honest feedback. But yeah, the biggest issue I had, again, is just, I feel like it's that third act. The script maybe just needed another pass to where there's more urgency in the third act. You get more things to do with maybe Proximus Caesar. I would have loved to see more of Proximus Caesar, kind of how he views the world and what truly makes him such a villain or, you know, such an antagonist. I wish we got to see more Proximus. However, I can't lie, the last 3 minutes of this film gave me the chills. It ends on a very, very strong note. Although I do think that, like Civil War from earlier this year, some of the character choices in the third act don't really make a lot of sense to me. So spoilers in the comments below if you want to explain a lot of the character choices in the third act and kind of dumb it down for me. That's so embarrassing to say. If you'd like to do that, please feel free, because there were some things in here that just kind of confused me. I've talked to a few people, like Aiden, my buddy, on the podcast we just did. He said he was also confused by some of the character actions in the third act. And if you've seen the movie, you'll probably know what we're talking about. I feel like I've been so negative and so harsh on this film, when in reality, it's a great movie. It's a good time. I really enjoyed my time with Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes. But again, just because that ending came and that third act came, and it was kind of a bit of a downhill, that's what I'm thinking about and dwelling on right now. I think there's a lot of very powerful moments, powerful images in here, moments that gave me the chills, got me excited, and I really loved a lot of the world building that they established here. However, I just wanted to see more of certain characters and just a little more with the runtime that we were given. That being said, I still think this is a good movie. Overall, I'm going to give Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes a 7.5 out of 10, which I have not found a clever name for, the 7 to 8 range, so we're just going to give it and leave it at there. But again, by no means do I think this is a bad movie. It's just a movie that I was very much looking forward to, and some aspects disappointed me a little bit that I just felt I had to talk about, kind of share my opinion on. But what did you think about Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes? Please let me know down below. Do you disagree with my points? Do you agree with my points? I do think you should check it out. I would love to see more Planet of the Apes films with this new technology that we've been getting. They just look phenomenal, and if anything, I just like spending time in this world that they have crafted for us. So, as always, guys, feel free to check out my other videos. I got an Invincible Season 2 review coming soon. Check out the channel update I dropped. And as always, have a great rest of your day.